Morning.
Morning.
We want to begin this morning with an exercise of imagination. I want you to imagine that sometime this week, you open your front door, there's a basket on your front door, on your front step with a baby in it. How's your life about to change?
Well, it's not. Maybe it should be orphanage.
They don't have orphanages anymore, you know? So you phone somebody, I don't know, you Google this, right?
CPS.
Found baby. CPS? Okay, so you phone CPS and they go, wow, you know, we're really busy right now, and so we'll get back to you in a couple of months when we got some time. So how's your life about to change? You'd sleep less, absolutely. You'd call Wes, and Wes would go, yeah, good luck with that, wow.
Hey, wait a minute.
You have to take care of the baby and feed it and make sure it's well and everything, make sure you see the doctor and all.
Yeah, you could have a long list of stuff to do right away, wouldn't you? Because I'm guessing most of you don't have like diapers lying around your house. Some of you might still. So you'd call Blair and go, Blair, diapers. Right? Why do you do this? How does a modern diaper work? It's been a long time for some of us, right? I don't know, Terry, when was the last time you changed a diaper?
It was a failure.
Okay.
It fell down.
It fell down.
And inside his pants and everything got soaked.
I'm sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So obviously, right, the metaphor is rather straightforward, and that is that this week we celebrated the fact that God dropped a baby off on your doorstep this week. But instead of wanting to be fed and changed and clothed and disrupt your sleep, this baby wants everything. This baby says, come and follow me. So this baby wants some sort of response. And we do this every year. Every year we do this again. We celebrate the birth of Jesus because, well, we forget. We forget about the fact that this baby shows up and says, come and follow me. Fortunately, tomorrow we have another opportunity. We have an opportunity to make New Year's resolutions. And so I thought this morning I would give you some suggestions for your New Year's resolution as a way of responding to this baby that has just been dropped off on your doorstep. And I thought we would just use the passage that was just read, the Luke 2 passage, because here's a lot of different responses to this baby, and maybe we can do something like that too. So, Luke chapter 2, starting at verse 22, when the time came for their purification. Purification. First of all, the odd word in that sentence is actually their purification, because as I read the Old Testament, it's only Mary that needs purifying. So who the there is that needs purifying, I'm not even sure. Joseph? Jesus? Who else needs purifying? Any case, purification. I think it would be probably impossible for me to explain to you the Jewish concept of purification as it was understood in the first century. Well, actually it would be impossible because I don't think I understand it either. And it's not a word that we use much today. We talk about pure products, right? Pure honey and pure maple syrup and things like that, but not so much pure people. Generally, in our society, when we're talking about pure people, we're mostly talking about teenage girls. Right? They're supposed to be pure, the rest of us can sort of do what we want or something like that. I don't know. But I think it's also worth understanding that the New Testament takes the Old Testament concept of purification and sort of turns it on its head. Because the Old Testament concept of purification is that you're supposed to keep yourself clean. You're supposed to keep yourself separate from things that are dirty. Just like sort of ordinary life, right? If you don't go play in the mud, it's easier to stay clean. And Jesus turns that all upside down. And he says, no, you're supposed to go play in the mud. And you're supposed to keep yourself clean. right? Which is a trick, right? And so you're supposed to go hang out with the wrong kind of people, right? I mean, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking, well, it's sort of like medicine, right? The idea is that the doctor sees all of these sick people, but the doctor's not supposed to get all of those diseases. That would not be the point at all, right? The doctor's supposed to say, well, that's your disease, and we're going to treat your disease, but we're just going to keep it on that side of the room as much as we can, because if the doctor got all the diseases that showed up in the office, this would be a very sick physician. But it's not even that, because Jesus didn't treat people as if they were sick. They were lost, confused, right? People do have needs, but we've all got needs. It's not like, well, they're the unclean and we're the clean, or they're the people with needs and we're all fine. It's like, no, we're sort of all in this mess together. But again, the idea is to somehow be there, but not be dragged down into the muck too far. So purification. I don't know how you would think about that in terms of a New Year's resolution, but I think it's worth thinking about. It's worth thinking about because it's really about how you conduct your life. And how you conduct your life is really, really important. So anyway, Mary and Joseph came to Jerusalem with Jesus for this purification. And they did this because it's written in the law of the Lord, every firstborn male shall be designated as holy to the Lord. So this goes back to the Exodus story, and the death of the firstborn and all of this stuff, and God says, oh, by the way, so, you know, my general approach to things is that every firstborn is mine. How many of you are firstborn? We'll include women in this, even though the Old Testament doesn't. Right? So the idea is that every firstborn belongs to God. It's not like you bring your firstborn to God and dedicate. We sort of do this here, right? Child dedication. You bring your child and you dedicate this child to God. And that's not what the Old Testament says. The Old Testament says that this firstborn is already God's. And what you get to do then is sort of buy him back or rent him or something like that. So that's why you bring an offering to God to say, okay, God, I know this one's yours, but I want to sort of buy him back from you. Here's a gift. And God says, okay, well, you can have him back, but he's still sort of mine. She's still sort of mine. Right? So we have this sort of backwards concept of everything firstborn already belonging to God. I don't know how you would think that through in your life, but maybe there's something in your life that you're ready to really, really recognize that it's God's. Right? And we say this generally, oh yeah, sort of everything belongs to God. Right? As a nice theme, but maybe there's parts of your life that you're willing to say, okay, this year I'm going to recognize how much this is God's. This part of my life. And again, that it's up to you to choose something, but to designate something as holy to the Lord. The next part of this story that you may or may not have noticed, depending on how much of a good Old Testament scholar you are, is that when they came to sort of buy Jesus back from God, they offered up a pair of turtle doves. Right? Now, that's not actually what the law says. The law says you're supposed to offer up a lamb. But if you can't afford a lamb, you can give the birds. So this means that when Mary and Joseph and Jesus arrived in the temple, they were already tapped out. They were already broke. They'd spent all of their money on, they probably didn't have anything to begin with, so they, whatever they had. So they were just down to buying birds. They couldn't afford a sheep. And that's a pretty big thing, right? I mean, this is their firstborn son. This is a big, big, big deal. And they're in the temple in Jerusalem to do this grand thing. And all they got money for is a couple of little birds. So they're seriously broke. So part of what this story reminds us of is that the New Testament very, very consciously and very, very clearly always tries to see the world from the perspective of the poor. Jesus does not come from wealth. Jesus understands poverty. He grew up in poverty. He knew hunger not as an abstract, but as a real thing. He grew up undoubtedly not eating as regularly as he would have wanted to. He's probably a short little guy because he didn't get enough protein. All of these are part of his perspective on the world, and so if we're going to become followers of Jesus, we need to maintain that perspective. And this is a daily, weekly, monthly, ongoing practice, because the news and sort of the general presumption of society is, well, if the rich are doing well, then the rest of us are somehow doing fine too. And that's just not true. And in fact, the reverse is generally true, that if the poor are doing well, the rich are doing even better. But, so it's always this upside down. So maybe that's your New Year's resolution, is to try to maintain as much as you can that focus on looking at the world from the perspective of the poor. So then Simeon comes up, and he's been waiting, and he's really excited about Jesus. And he's got this big speech, right? And he says, "Master, now you are dismissing your servant in peace, according to your word, for my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared for in the presence of all the people, a light for revelation to the Gentiles and for glory to your people Israel." Now, as I was reading this, I noticed that it was really visual. So much of Simeon's language is look, see, light, words like that. And I'm not a very visual person. I mean, I see things, right? And I think for me it's important for things to be basically clean. But if they're not beautiful, that's nice. It's my general approach to things. And I think it's worthwhile for me to focus more on, or to pay attention to beauty. And maybe it's something that we need to work on as a church. I don't know, because I don't notice. And maybe there's parts of your life where you're going, maybe we can do something actually beautiful. Because beauty is also God's creation. This sense that we have that something can be beautiful is an amazing idea. Do dogs notice beautiful? I don't know. Sometimes dogs are beautiful. Right? Do dogs hang out with beautiful dogs more than they hang out with ugly dogs? I don't know. Right? Does a bird know that it's beautiful? Does a bird notice that that's a beautiful bird and that's an ugly one? I have no idea. How would you even find that out, right? But we've been given somehow, right? And it's cultural too, but every culture, as far as I know, has some sort of sense of beautiful. And this is something given to us by God, which means that it's worth celebrating, and I think if it's worth doing, it's worth doing well. So maybe that's another thing you could do, right, as your response to this baby that's been dropped off in your life, is to notice beauty, to celebrate beauty, because it's beauty. Apparently also funny. So, one more thing. Anna. So Anna's been waiting also for the Messiah to show up. And her response is she praised God and began to speak about the child to all who were looking for the redemption of Jerusalem. Well, maybe your response to this baby is to practice speaking about your faith. This is the Church of the Brethren / Mennonite Church. And both traditions have been really much better at living out the faith than in talking about it. Well, I'll just follow Jesus when it comes to talking about it, and not so much. And because I grew up in this tradition, I still think this is much superior to the people who talk about it but don't actually do it. Right? So that's there's that to be said for it. But I also think that there's something to be said for learning to talk about it. And that's mostly just a matter of practice, I think. Right? And one of the reasons that we gather on Sunday mornings is to practice. Right? We practice loving one another so that we can, during the week, practice, right, also loving other people. So we practice here, we work on it out there. All right? We practice basic skills like getting along with each other even though we disagree, so that the rest of the week we can also do that. We practice being at peace here so that the rest of the week, right? So maybe, right, we could practice speaking about our faith. Not, right now you're hearing. Hearing is easy. And, I mean, yeah. Right. So maybe afterwards at coffee time, could you say something to someone about your faith? Practice here, right? And then during the week, if there's a place to say, hey, you know, whatever is going on, I see this from a faith perspective. Or, you know, I've really found prayer to be helpful here. Or God has been speaking, you know, or I don't know how you know exactly how it fits into whatever situation you're in. But if you don't practice here, you'll probably never figure it out there. And it's tricky. It's tricky because of all the people who are always God this and God that and God the third thing, and you don't ever see it in their lives. You go, well, I don't want to be like that. There has to be a balance there somewhere. So anyway, maybe that's your response to the baby. So this week, God came, dropped the baby off on you.